The call for dropping the U.S. dollar and going for a new global currency is getting stronger. I've been telling you for a while now, members of the G20 are saying we've got to get out of the dollar. Why do we have to get out of the dollar? There's a very good reason for it, but until we answer the question, why would the G20 want to get out of the U.S. dollar, there's no chance of saving the U.S. dollar. So why is it they want to abandon the dollar? It's the global reserve. You ask the average person on the street, why should the rest of the world keep the dollar as the global reserve? They'd have no idea. They'd have no idea. If I ask the average person on the street, why is it important that countries don't dump the dollar? No clue. So let me explain it. In the 1940s, when we won the war, everybody had to have gold. Everybody had gone through the Depression. Everybody's economy had been destroyed, except for the victors, and in particular, us. We had all of the new technology. We had everything. We had production in this country. We were rich in this country. The rest of the world was trying to put things back together, and we said, you know what, there's not enough gold for all of us, so we'll just keep the gold here in America, and you take our dollar, because at the time we had silver certificates, and then we had dollar, and the dollar was backed by gold. You could go in and say, I want $1 worth of gold for this dollar, please, and they'd have to give it to you. It was a Federal Reserve note. The dollar is not ours. It belongs to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, by the way, is not a government institution. So you could go take that Federal Reserve note, that promise, it's an IOU, and get $1 worth of gold. Well, there's just not enough gold, said the United States to the rest of the world, so just take our dollar, because it's a Federal Reserve note. And we'll stay on that gold standard. Dollar for dollar, pound for pound every time. Well, we convinced the rest of the world to do it. And so what did they do? Instead of in their banks having mountains of gold, they have mountains of U.S. dollars. In 1972, after we did Vietnam and the Great Society, because we wanted it all, we were convinced that we could have it all. Our grandparents knew, our parents knew that we couldn't have it all, but the new 60s generation, yeah, free love, free stuff, baby. We can have it all. We decided that we needed to do the war and the Great Society. Well, they knew when they put these things in, it wouldn't last. We didn't have the money to do it. So you had a choice to make. We could either stop the war, stop the Great Society. We could dig our heels in and say, you know what, gang, we're going to do the Great Society, but only when we can afford it. So right now we need to pool our money together and we need to buy more gold and put it into our treasury. We need more gold in Fort Knox and then we'll print more money. Well, we didn't want to do that. We can have it all. And so instead we decided we're going to violate the gold standard. We took ourselves off the gold standard. Well, what did the rest of the world do? The rest of the world said, wait a minute. Everything in my bank is $1, and it's because it's $1 worth of gold. You guys said $1 for $1. Now you're changing that. We said, no, wait a minute, guys. Here's the deal. We are going to change it, but we're going to tell you two things. We're going to start. You remember when we were growing up? I'm 45. Do you remember when we were growing up? We were the largest loaner to people. We would take and we loaned people money all around the world. Now we're the greatest debtor in the world. How did that happen? That happened because we made the promise that that's what we would do. We said we'll borrow money from you guys and we're going to buy all of your stuff. We're a consumer nation. So they held on to the dollar and we promised them that we would never ever violate it. Well, now we violated it. Now we're printing and monetizing our own debt. We're not even borrowing money from them anymore because they won't lend it to us. China is saying, you know what, we're going to lend it to you, but you got to pay it back in 7 years. We can't pay $1 trillion back in 7 years. So what are we doing? We're taking an IOU from ourselves and going, oh, you really, Glenn, you're going to pay that? You bet I am. Can I have that money? Sure. I tell you what, let me print it, and then I'll give it to you. We're giving money to ourselves. If you did this, you would go to jail. Because what it is you've gone to the banks won't loan you money, you don't have any money, but you still want it all, and so what are you doing? You go into the basement and you just print some more money. You just take some money and you Xerox it. You'd be arrested because it's called counterfeiting. Why? Because there's nothing backing that dollar. Well, tell me how it's different with the Fed other than they claim the right to do it in your name. Where is the collateral? What's backing that? You are. Your children are backing that. Your future tax dollars for generations are backing that. Your good faith and credit, not the credit of the United States, you, your house, your hard-earned money. That's what's backing that dollar. Now, China and France and Germany and England, and the list goes on and on and on, are all saying that we need a new global currency. Why? Because we have devalued ours. We have trashed our dollar. Everyone in the world is beginning to wake up except for us and say, we can't do this. They're never going to be able to pay this money back. Now it's not just China and the Minister of Finance or the Premier that's saying it. Now it is their Federal Reserve. Now it is their central bank. Now the Chinese central bankers are saying, we got to get out of the dollar. Dump the dollar. If they dump the dollar, that means they take all of that money and push it out into the system. All of the money that is collected from all over the planet is taken out of vaults and pushed into the system. Everyone unpegs from the dollar. That means the dollar is in a free fall. That means that what was worth $1 now is worth a penny. I mean, in dollars, the dollar is worth a penny. It's not worth anything anymore. It's wheelbarrows in the streets full of money just to buy a loaf of bread. It's happened before, and it's happening again, and it's happening on our watch unless we demand that our government stops spending money. Last week they monetized $1 trillion for the very first time. Monetized it, borrowed money from ourselves to print money to pay ourselves. They're doing it again this week for another $1 trillion. This whole Geithner thing, those are all being sold this week, and then the Fed is buying them back on Friday. Oh, well, that's going to work out well.